Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to The Joy Show. I'm Barbara Schreiner Trudell, your host, and I'm so delighted that you've decided to join us today where we celebrate everything that is unique and special to each one of us. And I want to begin with the land acknowledgement. We work, live, and play on the historical and traditional territory of many First Nations. And as we gather on Turtle Island, we as settlers are grateful for the opportunity to meet here. And we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, including the Métis, Inuit, and all other Indigenous people. Also, acknowledging that as we continue to grow and expand on these lands, there is still unresolved and dangerous inequality and discrimination toward our BIPOC and 2S LGBTQ plus family. And by making these acknowledgements, we strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation. We recognize our oneness, we realize our history, and we choose to create a new reality, for we are one. Well, today my guest is the Reverend Anne Ahokangas, who is with the Unity Spiritual Center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And she was one of my students many years ago, and now she is a force for good in the world. And I'm so delighted that she's joining us today. She is an author, she's a minister, she is kind of a jack of all trades, or a Jill of all trades. Not sure what that should be. Anyway, welcome, Anne Ahokangas. Rev Anne.
Hi,
Hi,
hi.
sweetie.
I'll say hi, Rev B, because
Rev
that's what
B, Rev A.
we used to call you that when we were students.
Yeah, well, people still do. The Rev B kind of stuck and still sticks everywhere I go. Different boards that I'm serving on, they call me Rev B. It's like, okay, it's
Okay.
just followed me around. But nobody calls you Rev A.
No, and I guess that's okay. Though I am Canadian A.
Canadian. That's very funny. Hi, Fiona. Welcome, welcome. So glad that you're here. She's here from Geneva.
Ah,
I'll tell you, we got people all over the place. Well, today we are talking about the journey that Reverend Anne is on. And the reason that I think her story is so fascinating is because she was one of my students. And while she was studying to become a minister, she figured it was her husband who was going to do that, and she was going to figure out what she was going to do somewhere down the road. And here she is running this wonderful Unity Spiritual Center in Hamilton and doing a brilliant job of it. And that was not your first ministry either, so tell us a little bit about what happened going from the I don't know to the I'm in.
well, I guess I'll go as far back as having met my husband, who now is Reverend Randy. When I first met him, we fell in love immediately. And it was like wherever he was going, I was going to.
Yeah.
And he was very spiritual. He was always studying all kinds of spiritual books. He even had a New Thought bookstore. And so he knew all about this. And when we embarked on ministerial studies, it was because he planned to embark on ministerial studies. And there
Yes.
was no way that he was going to do that, and I wasn't going to be involved. So, my competitive nature and also the wanting to be with him and having
Yes.
things to talk about and just sharing, I started the journey. And you know, when I think about it, he stepped back when he noticed that I was continuing to be competitive because
Yeah.
he knew that it wasn't really what he wanted to do. He was doing it to learn more for himself. And as he stepped back, it made room for me without me even realizing it to explore this further. And so, yes, I remember those conversations with you in our
Yeah.
classes where you would say, "So, what's your ministry going to be?" And I would say, "I have no idea."
I'm only doing this because Randy is.
And I think that's the way spirit really works, because if there's something in our soul that wants to express,
Yes.
then spirit brings about all opportunities, closes certain doors, opens others that
Yes.
are suited particularly to each one of us that leads
Yeah.
us on this trajectory. And so at the moment, I happen to be at Unity in Hamilton, and it came about for a number of reasons. I was working in Winnipeg, I'd been there for almost 5 years, and I was missing Ontario and wanting to be in Ontario. And we had made this huge move to Manitoba that was like humongous,
Yeah, it was.
including moving Randy's mother there to be close to us. And she passed away, and it had been a couple of years. And I said to Randy, how would you feel about moving back to Ontario? And the moment that he said yes, that'd be okay, and I had the full intention, I had this little thought in my mind that, gee, there's a place in Hamilton that probably is looking for a minister. And I gave them a call, and one thing led to another, and I've been there now almost 5 years. So
It's amazing.
yeah,
It's such a great example of how the universe kind of uh, reorders things in surprising ways, but takes us to where we're meant to be. It's fascinating. I love it. I
well,
love that.
I was listening to CBC radio this morning as we were out driving and doing errands, and they always have great talk shows. And today was focused on Mother's Day because it's tomorrow. And they were asking callers to say, what about your mother embarrassed you when you were young that then you now admire? And I was thinking, well, I can't think of anything that really embarrassed me, but the one thing that she did do was she would bring me to these at home hairdressers that would give you a perm in the kitchen sink and do all of those kind of things, and they were horrendous experiences. And I would be I'd cry so hard during most of the process that I'd be hyperventilating.
Yeah.
And so by the time I hit 13 and wanted to have a job, where did I go and work but in a hair salon? Because there was a part of me that I guess wanted to improve the industry, to improve people's experience. And so as a consequence, I spent several decades in the beauty industry.
Yeah.
But there was a part of my soul that was hungry to not only provide more than the superficial good look
Yeah.
for myself and for others, but to go deeper. And it was in that internal desire to go deeper that, I let that go. But I hadn't had that insight up until today when I listened to that program. And again, Spirit was kind of filling in the blanks of the path that I've been on and how everything was perfect. And I was superficial for the time that I needed to be superficial. And now I still am to a certain degree. I mean, I still put my lipstick on and I blow dry my hair and all of those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Yeah.
But the the meat of the conversation when I'm with someone has to be authentic and real and talking about things that aren't just skipping on the surface.
That to me, I'm with you there. That sort of small talk is frankly boring. I find it really hard to do, and I don't enjoy it at all. Like it exhausts me, actually.
Yeah.
And so when we can take a conversation a little bit deeper, that to me is very exciting. And I think the way the universe works always fascinates me. Like I'm in a big change at the moment, and I'm feeling this space around me because so much has been taken away very quickly. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, there's this space. And I think in the past, I would have been like, oh no, all these terrible things are happening. Whereas now, although I'm grieving the losses that I've had, I'm also in a position where I'm going, wow, there's something really big happening here, and I know it's good. And so it's unusual because I think in the past I'd gone, what do you mean? What do you mean? I gotta, put my cat down, or I have to move, or my mom just died and you sent it to me in a text. Things like that would have absolutely derailed me. Now it's like for a moment, I'm like, are you kidding? And then I flip it and go, yes, and. there's something happening that's really big because there's space now. And I don't know what that looks like, and I'm okay with that. But I think when we start to look at all the different things that we do, and I know the services of yours that I've watched, they're beautiful, creative, very clear. You're a great clear teacher. And I think the people who are attracted to your ministry are because you are absolutely clear in this teaching and what you share with others. And that is a great gift. And I'm still in awe of the fact of how you kind of came to it in this roundabout. I don't know what I'm going to do in this roundabout way. And of course, you're a seamstress and you're an artist and you're a great presenter and you were a hairdresser. You did my hair many times. You like, there's so much. Now, tell us a little bit about the first children's book that you wrote, because it's quite wonderful.
Well, again, because I'm so task oriented,
Yes.
it came to me that I wanted to learn how to do graphic design and to do it digitally on a computer. And so I don't just kind of willy nilly start doing something like that unless I have a project, because
Right.
that's just the way that I am. And so the thought came to my mind, divine idea,
Yeah.
that why don't you write a children's book?
Mm,
And then it was, okay, well, if you're going to write this children's book, then you should really illustrate it too.
of
And that way
course.
you're learning the graphic design and writing the book. And so it was probably about 15 minutes to write the book,
Yeah.
as in like not edited or anything, but the general idea of it.
Yeah.
But then it was another 6 months of 40 hours a week approximately learning how to do the graphic design.
Right.
And one of the biggest questions that I had with a few of my clients at the time, because I was still doing hair and studying ministry, was what do I do if in 6 months I've gotten so much better in my designs that I feel like I have to go back and redo all of the original pictures? Which they said to me, try and stay within the same style. And then if you do a new book, do your new design. And so I did a lot of struggling with my own need to be perfect and my own need to, all of that. And I was writing about a donkey who was learning to discover that I am who I am and who I am is just perfect. So I mean, it was this kind of in alignment consciousness as I created it. And the basic idea is that Velvet the donkey in this story was a real life donkey who I met at a girlfriend's farm. And
Yeah.
it was a very rare breed of donkey that came from the Andes, I believe. And because they lived in such wide, expansive areas, often the herd would be really miles apart as they're looking for food. And so they had a very loud bray, a bray that could travel 2, 3, 4 miles in
Wow.
that kind of a scenario. So the story of the donkey is that this donkey goes to be what they call a guardian donkey on a farm. And all farms have some animal like that that is kind of the one that alerts everyone to a predator or something like that. And
Yeah.
this donkey was particularly that way. She was free to roam wherever she would roam, and she would actually stand next to an animal if it was ill. If an animal had died or was euthanized and was buried on the farm, she would actually stand on the grave and grieve for sometimes a week or two. So I
Right.
never had the privilege of hearing her bray, but how the story goes is that she gets to be on this farm and she gets to see that she actually can see more than just the outline of these animals. She could see that they're all made of love. She doesn't know that she is, but she can see that they're all made of love. And one day she is just so excited to be there, and the rooster is crowing. And so she decides to bray. It's like the rooster, and it ends up just creating and wreaking havoc on the farm. And when she stops, she notices all of the destruction that has happened, including feathers coming off of the chickens and everything else. She takes off thinking, nobody's going to want me because I just basically destroyed everything. And the
Yeah.
farmer chases her and says, "You have to come back. We need you, but can we make a deal to maybe not bray unless it's for danger?" So she agrees, and she comes back to the farm, and everybody's happy, and life goes on. The interesting thing is that then two other chapters came along, with Velvet being sort of the facilitator of it. And
Mhm.
one of them was about an eagle being born called Ernie. And basically, the storyline is that she's observing the life of an eagle and how an eagle builds its nest, and how a baby eagle basically is raised in a very soft, cushy environment until it starts to get too big when it's time for it to leave the nest.
Leave the nest.
And so the mother pulls out all this soft stuffing that's in this nest, and it makes it very uncomfortable for baby eagle. Baby eagle has to get out of there eventually. So she doesn't bring food to it. She flies by saying, like, you need to jump out of the nest, fly, and get your food. And so the story goes that basically the eaglet finds out that it can fly, and the moral of that story is that even when life gets prickly, there is something really good at the end of it, and that it's actually there to enhance your life.
Yeah, I think when we look at all of the things that occur on this journey of ours, all of it is taking us to a greater potential and possibility. And as things end, we tend to resist that in really big ways. But the endings actually give us then a moment of a new beginning. And I think that's what we forget sometimes, that whatever goes away or changes or shifts is creating space for that new beginning, because there's something there. And how we react to that change may delay the good coming, because we're resistant to that letting go. So it's fascinating to watch the changes, and to acknowledge that, as for our careers, that there's so much that we can do. We're not stuck in a little cubicle doing one thing. As ministers, we can do so many things:
Yeah.
uh, writing and speaking and counseling and weddings and funerals and baby blessings and whatever. There's so much going on that it keeps us a little busy.
Well, and what I find is that as I walk this path, I become a much better teacher. And
Yeah.
that's really I think what drives me is that, and I joke about this, that, the day that I have it all figured out is the day that I'll croak. So obviously I still have a lot to learn.
And we all do, right? Like, the minute what I found for myself anyway is, as I've gotten older, I realize how little I know.
Yes.
When I was younger, I knew it all, of course, but
Yes.
as I'm aging, I'm going, wow, like, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. And it's that openness to receiving more information, or allowing things to simply be what they are, rather than having to define them, correct them. And I think some of my perfectionism has, relaxed a little bit, knowing that
I'm
it's
I'm
trivial.
laughing because it's like a mirror image here. And really, I notice it too, because I have very much, I guess, out of fear of perhaps not being liked, or not fitting in, or not being wanted,
Mhm.
that I needed to present myself in the most pleasing way for whoever was my audience at the time.
Yes. Yeah.
Whether it be my girlfriends, or school, or my job, or any of that. And I really, for a while, felt that I needed to share my insights and my wisdom with even random strangers, and
Yes.
and that has eased up too. Now I have a forum that I can do that in,
Yeah.
and that's in teaching classes, or being in front of an audience, because that's what I'm there for. But
Yeah.
now when I sit in a one-on-one conversation with someone, I let them be who they are. And I marvel in who they are. And I
Yeah.
marvel in the journey that they're in. because it's different from mine.
Hmm.
And I know that if they wanted information from me, they would ask.
That's such a powerful place to be, to let people be where they are. Because I think most of us, for a great amount of time, like maybe even going into ministry, it's how can I help the people around me? How can I change people's circumstances? How can I fix a broken world? But when we get to a place of going, but what if it's not broken? What if it's absolutely exactly what it needs to be in this now moment for the evolutionary path for each and every one of us? That it is, in fact, it is perfect, even when it looks bad. Somehow, some way, it is moving us into a greater understanding of life or potential or possibility, but it's taking us somewhere, and it's allowing us to grow from the experiences that we have. And everything we view from our own perception. So none of it's true anyway. It's like how I perceive it is going to be different than how you perceive something. So it's fascinating. Life is fascinating.
Well, and like someone once said, that there are millions of versions of you out there.
Yeah.
Is who I am to you is different than who I am to someone else that I might meet. And so
Yes.
when you think about the fact that we each have about 1,000 people in our influence,
Yeah.
or that we influence somehow or interact with,
Yeah.
and they think about us in a way that is a perspective that we probably have no idea of what that is. And so when
Exactly.
they talk about the world being an illusion, that
Mhm.
really starts to build that concept of nothing is real. It's all perception.
It's all perception.
Yeah.
And that can be really challenging for some of us to accept, because we go, no, no, it's real. See, I can touch it. This, of course it's real, but I see it from my own vantage point.
Yes.
And we all, it's even, we have a little carpet in our living room that our dog likes to lay on. I say it's gray. My husband says it's green. And I just chuckle, going, "No, it's not. It's gray. No, it's green." And it's like, so we see colors differently. We view the world through a different lens, and that can be great fun. And it can be, I think, sometimes while we're learning, while we're toddling along like little toddlers, we really do think that our perception is the right one, and changing that to "I'd rather be happy than right" is actually a maturing that hopefully happens at some point in time. For me, it took a while, and I think I still have moments.
Well, and that's the human condition, isn't it?
Course,
I mean,
yeah.
I think one of the first big turning points for me was when I was at a trade show and we were selling some cosmetics that we were making. They were natural cosmetics. And the gentleman and his friend that were next door to us, he was talking about just all of his accomplishments and everything else. And I came out with a comment that many still make today, and that is, "You make me so mad because," and then I went on to, "you can do this, you can do that, you can do that." And he said, "Stop. I don't make you anything. You decide how you feel about any given moment." And I was speechless
Yes.
for quite a long time as I processed that information and
Yeah.
recognized my own personal responsibility in that, and that how my language was affecting my moving forward, really.
And
So,
so many of us will say that, "Well, you make me so mad," and I remember another minister, we were talking one day, and she was talking about her sister who had a roommate, and they were having some challenges. And the roommate said, "Oh, you make me so angry." And she looked at her and said, "Oh, okay, then let me make you happy now." Like, which really annoyed her to no end. It's like, but the truth is, we don't. get our emotions from outside. We get our emotions from how we think about the experience we're currently having or the
Yeah.
person who's in front of us. It's those thoughts that produce that feeling of I'm mad or I'm sad or I'm scared or I'm whatever's going on, but none of it is caused by another individual. It's all caused by our thinking.
And isn't that the foundation of new thought? Is to
Get a new thought,
recognize,
get a new life.
yeah, really. And it can seem like such an easy statement to make when you and I are already this far into the study of it.
Yeah,
It becomes this thing that rolls off our tongue. But it's to really get that concept, to get the
yeah,
fact that you are personally responsible. That yes, everything that happens outside of you is happening, but how are you choosing to respond to it? And
yeah,
some of the stuff that happens is awful. And
yeah.
yet we do have control, and the control is in how do I choose to react? And
That's
yes, instantaneously, I might react in my old way or in the way that others would normally react or something like that.
yeah,
But when I come right down to it and I think about it, that's probably the biggest learning for me is first recognizing that I'm in control of my thinking. And then it's I'm in control of my reactions to everything.
yeah.
Like,
And I
wow.
can choose different. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me. And again, it comes back to that, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Because if you're choosing to be happy, you're going to accept that what is, and that each of us have different viewpoints, and that all of it is just based on our own understanding of life, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Well, we're going to take a short break. You're watching The Joy Show with my wonderful guest, Reverend Anna Ahokangas from the Unity Spiritual Center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And we are on the New Thought Media Network. So don't go away. We will be right back.
Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change.
Happy birthday, Camp Cedar Ridge. We invite you to come camp and celebrate our first year while in sacred service. May 19th through the 21st, we'll be restoring our beloved meditation labyrinth. Come camp with us for the weekend, and all we'll ask you to cover are the meals. Vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free options are available. That's the weekend of Friday, May 19th to Sunday, May 21st. You can bring your own tent or act fast and register for one of our glamping tents or bunkhouse beds while supplies last. We do have limited indoor accommodations for an additional fee. Find more details and registration at campcedarridgeor.org/lab.
And we're back. We're talking about, how we find our path and who we are on it, and what kind of things can derail us, or how we can shift our thinking to do a little better sometimes. So I like the idea of, there's the experience that happens, which in my mind is neutral,
Mhm.
and then I take a look at it and I go, I label it, it's good or it's bad.
Mhm.
And if I label it good, then my feelings become maybe joyful or peaceful. If I label it bad, they might become frustrated or angry or annoyed or sad or whatever. And it's in that the way we name a thing that it actually creates the energy that we experience from it,
Mhm.
because the experience itself isn't real. It's just my perception of reality, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, and it automatically then cascades because it's
Mhm.
become part of my awareness, part of my consciousness. And
Yeah.
so then I see the world through a lens of, and let's say we say it's negative.
Yeah.
And when I do, then all of a sudden I'm looking for negative
Yeah.
without realizing it. And I'm drawing to me more and more experiences like that.
Yeah.
And that's really when you can stop soon enough to
Mhm.
notice that that's what's going on and shift it to, hey, what's going right now?
Yeah.
That can be the pivotal point. And it can be even something as simple as, what am I grateful for in this moment, in the middle of that whole quagmire of chaos or whatever it is that's going on?
Yeah.
Say, what's good, what's happening. It may be for me something as simple as, and I happen to have the luxury of having this lovely office with a big window in front of my computer, and I can look out and let's say look at the leaves on the tree and just admire them for a moment, and it snaps me out of that place that I was at. And it's so much easier then. I'm not in the rabbit hole anymore. I'm out looking at the sky.
The power of gratitude, right? There's something, because, yeah, if we look for the good, we will find it. And
Yeah.
if we look for the bad, we will find it.
Yes.
Whatever you're looking for, you're kind of looking with. And so we create our world according to our own perceptions of reality. And that, that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. It's like, what do you mean I created this? People are picking on me. What do you mean? but but the truth is that there's something in us that has actually set that all in motion.
Well, and I guess that's where this thing called metaphysical malpractice has come into play. When
Mm,
you're early on in the studies of all of this, it can seem quite black and white, and somebody has something happen, and you say, well, what was in your consciousness? What was in your thinking to cause that to happen?
yeah,
And the thing is that life does happen, stuff happens
yeah,
whether you created it or not. It's, what are you doing about it in this moment? And what are you creating for your next moments? And it's in that gratitude, it's in that focusing on, perhaps like the joke of the pile of manure and the little kid is digging, and the farmer says, what are you digging for? And said, well, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere with all this manure. So to be
eternal
able
optimist.
to look for the silver lining.
Yeah, because it's always there. I think sometimes when something stops or blocks or ends or changes, there is that new opportunity. If we stopped looking at the closed door and banging our head on it, we could actually turn a little to the right or to the left and see the possibility. Good afternoon, Shay. Good afternoon, Wayne. Glad you're with us. But I think sometimes we're so busy looking at the thing that has ended or stopped or is broken or whatever's going on with it. And we're so busy focusing so narrowly on that one idea that we can't see the plethora of opportunities that surround it. If we would only shift our gaze ever so slightly, we would see the new beginning. And it's fascinating how we struggle with that.
Well, and I had an awareness of that this week. And it had to do with the fact that I wanted something to be resolved immediately. I know all this stuff. It should be fixed right away. And
Yeah.
in wanting, not being willing to be in what it was, and recognizing that sometimes it takes little baby steps. It's not going to be resolved just like that because I think I know what I'm doing, or I'm going to say the right words or think the right thoughts right in that moment that it's going to transform. That I need to have the patience to recognize that, you know what, you latch on to the first thing you can be grateful for, then the next, and eventually, maybe that day, maybe 6 months later, you're going to just look back and say, wow, somehow I got through this. But that it's not a quick fix, because it's not a matter of fixing. It's a matter of changing your trajectory, your focus.
And I think, we've all had the experiences where an event has occurred that has maybe devastated us in the moment, but we've looked back on it maybe 6 months or a year later going, wow, that was the best thing that could have happened. And I'm so grateful that I'm now wherever I've landed, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I think that's a really powerful thing to keep in mind, is that whatever's happening now, um, is where our attention should be. And if we keep sort of being present with what is rather than wishing it away or wishing for something else, if we're with what is, we will naturally move into the next expression.
Yeah. Well, do you want me to share what I had go on this week? Just to give
Sure.
an
Yes, I'd love that.
Well, and you and I know this because we've talked often, is I've had problems with my digestion, and my intestines sometimes really, really hurt. And usually it lasts 2, 3 hours and then it's gone. And it
Mhm.
seems to be random. And so, being the new thought person, I think, okay, well, what have I been thinking that's caused my stomach to be in knots, for my intestines to not be working? And in this particular instance, it lasted 24 hours. It was
Ouch.
just agony. And
Mhm.
in that, in the moments of kind of reprieve, which were seldom, I would say, well, I will do this prayer. I'll do this spiritual mind treatment. I will do this meditation. I'll do this tapping. I'll do this. I'll do that. All the tools from my toolbox. I'm pulling them out.
Yeah.
But the thing that I wasn't doing was saying, every time I've had this happen, it has resolved somehow
Yeah.
beautifully and wonderfully. In normal conditions, my system works really well. Now, I don't
Yeah.
know if you can notice, just even in my tone, there is a calmness, there is an assuredness in that recognition. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until after I'd gone through that 24 hours of crisis that I started to reevaluate what I had gone through and say, okay, if I can train myself in the midst of whatever that crisis seems to be, and in this case, it was a really overwhelming physical thing, and to remind myself that it's all okay in the end, and it has always resolved itself. And so this will resolve too. And that is a form of gratitude. It doesn't seem like it, but it really is. It's a
Yeah.
recognition of the truth. And
Exactly. Yeah.
and so I still did beat myself up this week about the fact that I should know better and I should have remembered that sooner, and all of that. But I now have that in my awareness
Yeah.
as I move forward to say, okay, it is gratitude, but what form of gratitude do I need to take in this moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with physical pain, it's always a little bit difficult to sort of get past it. And I know for me, one of the things that I've been working to do, sometimes successfully, is that when the pain starts, to welcome it and to, just to go into it and say, oh, you need my attention. Okay, I'm here. Welcome. And try it isn't always easy to do when the pain is intense,
Mhm.
but to try to glean from it what I need, because it always seems to come back to my self-care. that, you know, there's something in my body or in my experience that's trying to grab my attention, and I'm really good at ignoring it. And so something will sort of slap me up. I call it the cosmic sledgehammer.
Yes.
That comes out and goes, hey, wait, get back in line. And, you know, it's being with that and being willing to go, oh, okay, there's something I need to see that I'm not seeing. And if I can just stop for a moment and not do anything, because we're so good at doing,
Mhm.
and simply be, then whatever I need tends to reveal itself kind of quickly as well, which
Mhm.
is interesting. But that idea of, oh, you know, what did I do to bring this on to myself or whatever? We're part of, you know, one consciousness. We live, move, and have our being in this one thing where all things exist.
Mhm.
So it's not even necessarily my idea that tripped me up. It could be the consciousness within the city that I'm living in or whatever, that there's an energy flow. And for whatever reason, I've tapped into it unwittingly. And I like what Bruce Lipton wrote in the foreword of Michael Beckwith's book on visioning, where he says that, you know, we use about 5% of our conscious abilities.
Yes.
And the rest of the time, it's the subconscious that's actually running the show, which, of course, was developed between the ages of 0 and 6.
Yes.
Oops.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
and I
go
guess
ahead.
that where I'd like to go with that, just to touch on it, because I think it can be a slippery slope, and
Mhm.
that is that, yes, we are influenced by what we'll call the cultural consciousness or the
Yes.
group consciousness or global consciousness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if we're in default mode or rote mode, then we're like a leaf in the wind, just being blown
Exactly.
from side to side.
Yeah.
And to become a deliberate liver, a deliberate creator,
Yeah.
means to say, if what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling isn't what I like, then what can I do right now to bring
Yeah.
myself and my reality to something that I prefer?
We have the ability to do that.
And we do. We really
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the importance of meditation, as well as training the conscious aspect of our mind to not be so easily distracted, or to just kind of flip about like a flag in the wind or a leaf in the wind, but rather to consciously go into a place of, I'm going to keep bringing my mind back. I'm not going to let it just run rampant like a little child in a candy store. I'm going to bring it back, and I'm just going to keep doing that. And I'm going to do it over and over again. And I think it's how we train ourselves to be much more conscious and aware of what is really going on in our world and in our life. And I think, you know, I think about the vision statements of, you know, CSL, and I can't remember Unity's offhand right now, but, you know, that idea of a world that works for everyone. Well, it already is.
Yes.
Works according, it's working perfectly according to my consciousness for me, and your consciousness for you, and the person living on the street, their consciousness. And so I keep going, a world that works for everyone's highest and best good, like for a greater potential and possibility, that all of us find a way to live our true authentic self and celebrate who we are. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but you know, that's kind of my vision is, you know, you be you and I'll be me, and we might like each other, we might not, and it's all okay. And we might agree sometimes and disagree other times, and it's all good. Like somehow all of it is working um, according to our own consciousness.
It is. And you know what? That statement, a world that works for everyone, always was something that I would ponder, because I also believe that we come into this world to want to experience certain things in a certain way. And
Mhm.
there are a lot of people who don't believe that and don't believe in things like reincarnation and a soul's idea of wanting to express or experience
Yeah.
collectively or individually. And so, you know, if I was a soul that came here to experience pain and suffering and conflict, then me being able to do that is a world that works for everyone. because it's working for me, because I'm getting to do and experience what it is that I want. And
Yes.
someone else might look at me and paint me as, oh, you're suffering, and let me help you in your suffering somehow. And yet that's not what my soul's desire is. And so, I mean, this could be a really deep conversation going for a really long time, because there are so many points of view on that. But that's sort of what I feel anyway.
Yeah, I think I need to get you on to Spirit Cafe on a Wednesday at noon, where we have our courageous conversations, because I love that idea that, wherever we are, like whether we're having a painful experience or a joyful experience, it's simply an experience. And all of it is actually along our own path that will take us to the place that we're headed, that somehow we know who we are at a very deep level.
Mhm.
And it's, kind of finding our pathway. And sometimes we think we're way off track, but sometimes we need to be way off track to actually get where we need to be,
Yes.
where, kind of our soul's calling is. And the fact that all of us are unique and special is kind of a cool way to look at, well, oh, you're living this way right now. Okay, cool. It's not good or bad or right or wrong or better than. I don't care if you're the King of England or the President of the United States, or if you're the guy living under the bridge off the Gardner. Everybody, all three of those beings are divine, perfect, glorious beings of love and light, and experiencing the world in a way that is suiting them at the moment.
Well, and I think one of the wisdoms that I have learned along the way is to ask questions rather than to make statements. And
Mhm.
one of the best questions, when I don't know what you're deciding to experience, is to
Yes.
say to you, how can I support you?
Yeah.
And I remember you as a teacher to me, and you had someone in your family who was dying, and she was in a lot of pain.
Mhm.
And you were talking about prayer, spiritual mind treatment. And you said that you have to ask the person what it is that they want to experience. And
Yeah.
she didn't ask to be healed
Nope.
or to live. What she asked for was to be comfortable and to feel peaceful. And
Yeah.
she ended up dying. And it was in that teaching that we had, that you expressed, that I really got the foundation of this idea that even when we pray or do spiritual mind treatment, whatever you want to call it, that we're not trying to fix anything.
Nope, we're
We're
not.
aligning with the truth, and the truth of that individual as well as the greater truth, so that in fact that can be their reality, their experience, not what I
Well,
want it to be.
yeah. Yeah, because I don't know your path and you don't know mine, so we make assumptions all the time.
Yeah.
And, we know that isn't the best way to do things. But one of the things that I teach always is that, because 'cause I'll get people, and I'm sure you do as well, get people who come and say, "Oh, I need you to pray for my husband because he needs to be fixed," or, "I need you to pray for this person because they need to heal and get healthy," and whatever. And I won't do that. My prayer is, yes, I'll pray for your husband if that's what you would like me to do, but what I'm gonna pray for is highest and best good, because
Yeah.
I don't know his path, and I'm not going to speak, some idea into consciousness that maybe is not his desire. But I can pray for you, and you tell me what you want to experience for you.
Yeah.
And I will pray that. I will treat about that. But I think sometimes that's a little bit challenging for people. And, it was a great awareness for me as a practitioner student when somebody came to me that was dying and asked for prayer treatment, but not for health, not for
Yeah.
healing, not for the death to be, put aside, but rather for it all to be okay. Like that kind of changed the game for me.
Yeah. It's
It
like,
was like,
but are you sure? Are you sure?
yeah, don't, I mean, come on, don't you want to live forever? Like what's the story? And that, that's a big learning that we don't know. another person's path. We don't know what their soul journey is, and we've decided that death is bad. Who decided that?
Yeah.
You know, it's a transition from one experience to another. How is that bad? You know, it's not any different than changing clothes, or, you know, it's like, oh, okay, done this. Okay, good. Now what? And I think that's another part of the journey that we don't often think about, because there's really that fixation on death being, you know, the ultimate curse or the horrible ending to, like, it's some awful, awful thing. But what if it isn't?
Well, there are so many videos you can watch on YouTube, for instance, of people who have had near-death experiences or actual death experiences. And they
Yeah.
all talk about not wanting to come back because it's
Yes.
so fabulous. And they're told, like, sorry, but you're not done yet. You got to go back.
Well, and I had one of those. And what was interesting about it when I had it, because I think Genevieve was probably about 5 or 6 at the time.
Mhm.
And so logically thinking, me dying then when I was the main breadwinner would have not been great for the family. But that wasn't how I felt at all in the experience. It was just this incredible peace that was beyond description. And I knew that all would be well. There was no question in my mind that it was perfect.
Yeah.
And then I was given the choice. Like, you know, you've done what you came here to do, and if you want to stay and do more, you can, or you can leave. Like, that was the choice I was given, and it was like, yeah, well, okay, I'll stick around and do some more. And boom, as soon as I was back, I freaked out. It's like, oh my God, what would Genevieve and Peter have done if I had died? Like, oh, you know, but I didn't have any of that energy in the space of the absolute or whatever, or wherever, who knows. But in that moment, whatever that experience was, it was really clear that all was well. There's
Yeah.
only love, there's only
There's a
beauty.
series of channeled books called Emmanuel's books.
Uh-huh.
And in one of them, they ask the question about death. And the answer is that death is like removing a tight shoe. And,
That's a great
because I'm
expression.
so a touchy-feely kind of person,
Yeah.
like, yeah, like that sounds so cool.
Yeah, that's like taking my socks off. I hate wearing socks, right? So taking
Or
my
for us
socks off.
women, our brassiers.
Oh, well, there is that.
Yeah.
For
Be
sure.
free.
Oh, free at last. Yeah, it's these little anecdotes that help us to understand better. And I think one of the great learnings I had a little while ago was when I started studying the Bible, because that was something I never grew up with and didn't really care to learn about. And then when I did, one of the things I learned that I really loved is how God had said to Adam, you know, whatever you name a thing, that's what it will be for you.
Mhm.
And so when I think about that now, I go, yeah, whatever I name the things in my life, that's what they are for me. That doesn't mean it'll be like that for you, but that's
Right.
how it's going to be for me. And that idea that I can name something good or I can name it bad, it's up to me what I choose to call it. But whatever I name it, that's how I'm going to experience it.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, okay, maybe this Bible thing is okay if I interpret it a little differently than historical fact. So it's been fascinating to do that and just to get a different viewpoint on what this library is about and how I can use it today to
Yes.
actually affect my life, which, you
And
know,
it is
there's
rich, very rich,
very rich.
especially if
Yes.
you look at it from a metaphysical viewpoint.
Yeah, yeah, exploring, you know, like the idea of Lot leaving Sodom and Gomorrah and is told, you know, don't look back, because
Yeah.
if you do, you'll turn into a pillar of salt.
Yeah.
Well, you know, salt, if you pour salt on the ground, nothing can grow, right? It's crystallized. Well, if we're looking backwards, we can't move forward,
That's right.
right? And so it just makes perfect sense that looking backward, stops everything. Now I can't grow, I can't expand, I'm stuck, I'm crystallized, and so there is little things that as I interpret them differently, I begin to go, oh, I could actually read this and get something out of it, which is fascinating. So we are rapidly coming to the end of our hour. It's so quick.
Wow, ever go fast.
It really does. It really does. So, what final thoughts would you like to share about your life, your journey, or your ministry, or just, some sage advice to those who are listening today? What would you like to share as a final thought?
Wow, that's really putting me on the spot.
I know. I love
I
that.
think I think that whole idea of when you change your thinking, you change your life. And to first recognize what it is that you're thinking, and
Yeah.
then that you can think something else. And when you do, everything changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Because it's true. Because if I'm looking at a situation as bad and terrible and awful, that's how it's going to be for me. And I'm going to blow it up and probably exaggerate it and go tell all my friends how bad, awful it is. And the experience just multiplies and becomes something really, really not good for anybody and definitely not good for my own self. So I love that. Change your thinking and you change your life.
Yeah.
Not easy to do, though.
No, it's simple. It's not easy. And
Yes,
search out people who can help you to learn how to do that, because
exactly.
we're all around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the interesting thing is that whole idea of, there's something happening in life, in the world, and how I perceive it makes it my experience.
Yes.
And because I'm the one thinking my thoughts, I can change them. Which is a wonderful reality as well, as to notice that here's the way I think. Here's the website for Reverend Anne's Spiritual Center, Unity Spiritual Center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And you're all welcome to go on there and, like her stuff and subscribe and watch her videos. You will be really glad you did. They're rich and full of amazing, amazing content. And for my final thought, I think all I want to say is that each one of us is created unique and special. If there are no two alike, even if you're identical twins, I guarantee you, you are not exactly alike when it comes to your thought process or the way you experience the world. And we have the ability to choose our thoughts, to be conscious about what we think about and where we put our attention. So I invite you to think about what you think about. Take time in meditation and in prayer or spiritual mind treatment so that you can begin to formulate an idea or strategy for your life that actually will create a greater sense of fulfillment and satisfaction, because you're created unique and special, just like everybody else. And that's a really wonderful thing to know. And thank you so much for being here. You are a rock star. I just love watching what you've done, and the fact that we, kind of went through this together. Me as
Yeah.
your teacher, you as the student, and now the student becomes the teacher, and I absolutely love that. So thank you for being here today. I really do want to get you onto Spirit Cafe, so we'll pick a date for that, because I think we could create a courageous conversation that might
Okay.
just pique some interest somewhere along the way. So thank you, and have a most wonderful Mother's Day and Grandmother's Day, and
Thank you
have
so
fun.
much.
Love
Bye.
you.
Bye for now.
Bye, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe and share. You're watching the New Thought Media Network, and this is The Joy Show. Bye for now.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate.
New Thought Media Network. Come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.